Welcome to the My Church Internet broadcast. This is Pastor Sonny coming to you live from Fort Worth, Texas. Alright, I want to thank y'all for joining me this morning. We're going to have an awesome time. We're going to pick up right where we left off in Sonship Orientation. This is session 24. We left off talking about to know wisdom and to perceive the words of understanding. Now, if we're to know wisdom and instruction, it's not what we're now supposed to begin acquiring wisdom, but that we are first of all supposed to realize what this body of information we're going to be getting, all the wisdom of the Father, as well as the entire education curriculum that it's set in, all the instruction of the Father. We're supposed to realize and recognize what all that is for, what it's designed to ultimately produce, and why it's so important above all else in life. You are first of all supposed to realize what this life as God's Son holds for you. You are to know the value, the importance, the worth, the gravity and weight, and even the grandeur of what we, my Father and me, are about to embark upon. Your Father and you. Put yourself in there. Another benefit to Son. Another benefit that the Son gains from, first of all, coming to know the value of the information, wisdom, and the curriculum, the instruction, he's about to receive from his Father is some assurance and confidence that all this wisdom and this instruction has a specific goal in mind. That is, that it has been formed by my wise and experienced Father. In other words, this isn't his first rodeo. That it has taken into account all the pitfalls and possibilities and snares and snags and traps that could ever be encountered by the Son. As sons, the very first thing that your Father endeavors to accomplish in your education is producing in you the awareness that he has some important and valuable information for you. Now, it's worth more than anything else, and it has serious and eternal benefits for you. He has valuable wisdom and valuable instruction, and you are to see it as that. You need to see why that matters. You need to see that the natural thing for a father to do is for you, before he ever begins instructing you, is make clear the value, benefit, and importance of the information that he's about to give you. You need to understand and appreciate why that matters, and why that would be the first thing in your education as God's Son. I've actually alluded to the reason why, because the Father is going to have to deal with the Son's attitude toward learning in the first place. And above all things, he your Father, the Father, knows just how valuable and just how important this information is. Therefore, the first thing he needs to get done is to get you to view that just like he does. In fact, before he ever starts giving you the information, before he ever starts providing for you to have the same decision-making skills that he himself has, before giving you instruction in how to make decisions that will manifest God-like thinking as described in 3, where you begin to receive the wisdom that you operate on. You know, verse 3 of Proverbs chapter 1. Well, before any of that happens, he wants us to perceive the value of the sonship education to a great degree, just like he does. In other words, your valuing of God's wisdom and God's instruction is to begin to match God's own valuing of his wisdom and instruction. And in that second part to phase 1, it is so fantastic. You advance from just knowing wisdom and instruction to perceiving, not understanding or not perceiving the doctrines that provide understanding or anything like that at all. No, not that. But to perceiving the words of understanding. That's the next step in gaining the proper value and appreciation for the education you're about to get. So let's recap this. First, you are to know wisdom and instruction, which means that you are to know the value and importance of what he's going to give you. All right? You are to know, this is the second one, you are to know why that matters and why this isn't just time spent. Oh, excuse me. Times that you kind of have to serve out just because your father demands it to be properly educated by him. No. Time served like some kind of jail sentence. No, that's not it. Which is how most education is viewed. Then this is not how that is. And there's a big difference between childhood education and adopted son education. Because here the son is supposed to start out with zeal and enthusiasm to receive this education. And it's supposed to be on level with the zeal and enthusiasm that the father has to teach it. The thing that starts all that going and puts all that in motion is to know wisdom and instruction. And I should say that this introduces one of the aspects of sonship prayer in this dispensation of grace. We often say that we don't know what we should pray for. Well, this is one of those things we should be praying for. We should be talking to our Father about the education he desires to give us. Your desire to spend time with your Father over this issue is an indicator of your level of desire for the wisdom and instruction of your Father. If you view this education with reluctant compliance, then this is exactly why this part is included at the very start. To adjust your attitude, to view the curriculum as your Father views it, to be as enthusiastic about receiving it as he is to give it to you. It is because our desire to study often does not match our Father's desire to teach us that the first phase of level 1 is given. One of the main objectives of the first phase of level 1 of your sonship education is for the Father to produce in the Son the same attitude toward the information that the education that the Father has. Excuse me, I need a drink. And that's only water, by the way. Now, it's supposed to produce in the Son an understanding and appreciation for the wisdom he's about to receive. That there's nothing else that can compare with it. That there's nothing else that's more valuable than it. That there's nothing else that's more impressive or more important than it is, and that there is nothing of greater worth than it. And your Father knows that in order to do that, In order to get that accomplished in this empty but exuberant, newly adopted adult son, the father is going to have to set before the son something that is going to deeply impact him. Oh, a wow factor, a jaw-dropping, impact-making issue of what the father's business is, and some inkling of what the son is going to be doing in that business. Wherefore, you are supposed to begin your education as a son by knowing wisdom and instruction, by seeing that there is nothing in this world that compares to what your Father has for you, that the opportunity to be educated by my Father and receive His wisdom and His instruction is the greatest opportunity in the world. That's what knowing wisdom and instruction is supposed to do for you. To know wisdom and instruction is the establishment of the proper attitude within you of excitement and enthusiasm to begin this education. Now, as you go down through the section of Proverbs that is designed as the exhortation from the Father to the Son, for the Son, knowing wisdom and instruction, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 through 19, right off the bat, you are confronted with all these allurements and distractions and attractions and enticements that the son is going to encounter. Now let's read through this section to get an idea of what I'm talking about. Excuse me. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, and let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Now, part of the issue of knowing wisdom and instruction is to understand that the Father knows all about these enticements, the ones that seek to lure a son away from his father's wisdom and instruction and knowledge. He's planned for all of them, and he has information designed to work in your inner man that makes it so that those things won't affect your continued sonship education. He has exactly what the son needs to countermand all the allurements and enticements that come down the road that attempt to make it so you decline your ear and incline to the wisdom of this world and attend to this world's wisdom instead of attending to the wisdom and instruction of your Father. Instead of attending class, instead of listening to me on Sunday mornings or Monday through Friday on Freedom Through Faith Christian radio broadcast. The son is to learn early on, in just the first 2 chapters of Proverbs alone, that he must come to understand that there are really only 2 paths of wisdom to follow. And one is valued and esteemed by his father, and the other is disdained by his father. Actually, when you as a son know wisdom and instruction and perceive the words of understanding, phase 1 of level 1, That's all designed for you to see more attraction and more allurements to what your Father has for you in this education process than anything this world has to offer you. How different is that compared to how most folks traditionally think about how they live as Christians? Most who call themselves Christians traditionally view living unto God, more often than not, as some form or fashion of self-denial. The idea being that, okay, Christ redeemed us, then the least we can do is deny ourselves the lustful pleasures that we want, and the whole ministry thing revolves around keeping you from sinning. Now, it's not that I'm promoting sinning or saying that keeping saints from sinning isn't right. But the great problem with that is that you still see everything the world has as more attractive than what God has. In fact, most folks don't see anything attractive about what God has. It's simply their duty as one who has been redeemed to turn from sin and deny all these selfish lusts. The idea is to reciprocate Christ's love for you by turning from everything you actually want and desire, and that's alluring you, and then determined to do without those things. Well, that's pretty much how most saved people think. But what phase 1 of level 1 of sonship education is supposed to produce in you is radically different than all that. Coming to know wisdom and instruction and to perceive the words of understanding are designed to cause you to value and esteem your Father's words and your Father's instruction and your Father's wisdom as having something that is more attractive and more alluring and more valuable than anything this world has to offer, or any other pursuit or endeavor you could put your life and your energy in doing. One of the byproducts of all this is to create in you a hunger and a desire for God's words, God's wisdom, God's instruction and understanding that just can't be satisfied by any other thing or in any other way. That's because we find all that wisdom and instruction attractive. And not just attractive, but we view it with the same desire our Father views it and values it and esteems it himself. You see, it's not, well, I really would like to be doing this other thing. You know, fill in the blank because you find it more attractive. But since Christ died for me and he'd rather me be here, then I guess I'll force myself to do this. Or I guess I'll not go there or say that or live that way or whatever. But if phase 1 of level 1, Proverbs chapter 1 verse 2, properly works in you. Well, if it works properly, you'll see this education is far more attractive and valuable and worth more than anything else, and then all those other details will begin to just naturally conform to you, now making this education the priority of your life. Then your life will begin to be arranged around this education as its center, instead of something else being the center, and this education being just one of many objects that orbit and revolve around your life. If you really see all that, then you recognize that that's not just a subtle difference. It's a radical difference. One view says, I know I should attend church more. I know I should pray more. I know I should read and study my Bible more. But the other says, I can't wait for Bible class. I can't wait to read my Bible. I want this education my Father is offering me. Mm-mm-mm. All right. To sum this up, for to know instruction, or wisdom and instruction. By knowing wisdom and instruction, a son's proper attitude towards his sonship edification is established within him by the effectual working within him of the exhortations that provide for him to know wisdom and instruction. The desire is established within him not to be a fool. You know, the fool despises wisdom and instruction, but the son's desire gets established within him to emulate God his Father, to learn his knowledge and wisdom, to walk in his paths and his ways, and to become skillful and capable to work with him in the operations of his business. What that first exhortation in Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7, with that, the son is immediately confronted with a decision. You have a choice as to how you're going to respond to your sonship education. There are only two possible choices you can make. Are you going to be enthusiastically respond and see it as attractive and beneficial, seeing all the allurements that it has and all the value and the worth it has for you? Or are you going to be a fool in your Father's eyes, not seeing the value of it and being duped in despising it? You know, in despising it because you are a fool. Alright. This comes to the end of our first session this morning. We will be back in a second session here shortly, and we'll pick this up right where we left it off. So, don't forget that you can write me with any questions that you may have. If you'd like copies of these notes, write me at mychurch@rocketmail.com. And I'll respond to your questions. I'll find the answer for you. If I don't answer right away, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to answer. So just understand that this sonship education, this sonship curriculum that God has laid out is far greater and far worth more than anything that you will ever see. Alright, we'll come back in just a moment.